For my first video of the secular year, I would like to say how ridiculous it is to have New Year's resolutions. If you can think of something good to do it now. And the idea of, oh, it just being another day or another month shouldn't make any difference. And your old acquaintances that you need to forget, do them now. Don't wait for a special time. This used to be a time of year to gather firewood in the northern hemisphere. There used to be festivals for such. It is one thing to do something praising God and scorning devils, but it seems wrong to curse those who haven't brought a branch or log, as many did. Shaxi is one of the best known of these festivals. Shaxi, Harmony, Kartash, Shaxi, Komana, Bidahad, I don't remember the rest, branch, whoever brings a branch, may God grant their wish. Whoever doesn't bring a branch, may God not grant their wish. That almost curses everyone, so you see my point. And of my final comments here on the Jesus verses in Qoor'aan, and Christianity. About Surah 23:50, I said, "This is yet another indication that Mary and Jesus were part of one of the Essene communities living in the highlands, with water sources in the desert. They might have just been near one or lived in a similar way." About 33:7, I say, just like Jesus was just another Nabi, Muhammad was another that swore that he'd do his mission. About 33:8, I say, the prophets like Jesus were tested as to if they were true in their oaths, and we put to an inquisition the same as their nations will be. About Surah 42:13, I say, won't you join in the same religion as Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad had? Misassociation with God is opposed to true faith, but God accepts those who truly turn to Him willingly to make up for the wrong they did. About 42:14, I say, even the scribes of the versions of the Bible were unsure what parts of it were from God. The early Christians added and subtracted to the biblical texts of the so-called New Testament until the Catholic Church finalized the Bible. The various books that didn't make the cut prove there were more reasons to divide than the doctrinal differences based on the text of the Bible after that. About 42:15, I say, encourage the right system of judgment in others. Accept the actual portions of all God's scriptures. Everyone holds the consequences of what they do. Life is about acting justly over doing what others want. Let's not argue. where God will judge. About Surah 43:57, I say, people would object to referencing Jesus because both the person and the faith were foreign. About Surah 43:58, the faiths attributed to Jesus. Profery or something made a similar point as I have made, that even in the Bible, it doesn't sound like Jesus was promoting Christianity. For 358, I say, it is still very much the case that people will use unilateralism to condemn one movement based on the other without knowing what the other says about an issue or individual or people. About Surah 43:59, I say, the Israelites were not expecting God to incarnate with them. They expected another servant of God to set an example. About Surah 43:60, I say, it was better to have human teachers that could be related to than light beings whom are incapable of sin or flaws. About Surah 43:61, I say, either the increased knowledge of Jesus outside of what mainstream Christians say has and continues to be a sign of the end times, or Jesus is coming back to openly refute Christianity and all misassociations with God and disbelief concerning him. About Surah 43:62, I say, confusion about Jesus is only from your enemies who would keep you from some of the opportunity God has bestowed. About Surah 43:63, I say, Jesus was sent by God to be followed in Islam as a way to clarify the confusions that arose in the Judaisms. About Surah 43:64, God is the one to call and treat as master, not a creation that people are devoted to instead. About Surah 57:27, I say, celibacy beyond necessity to be chaste was a crime that took them from the primary commandments of family life. Denial of their desires led to repression that was harsh on them and often the fact of oppression of others. Actually following Jesus would have given them a sense of goodness to all in those ways, that they were like Jesus. About 61:6, I say, John 14:16 can be said to have been such a prophecy of Jesus. One of Prophet Muhammad's names when rendered in Arabic. Elsewhere in the Bible is where Jesus denied being the final prophet of God and the comforter that couldn't have been any definition of the Holy Spirit. About 61:7, I say, this is a difficult passage to render into English, but not being guided is a choice of those who violate rights. It is the right of God not to blaspheme him or assert things about submission, expression of peace to him that are not true. And that's the more modern name of true religion, Islam, is I'm defining that there. And 61:8, I say, people want to ignore the truths about God and religion because they would feel motivated to act. It seems weird to say it, but the who doesn't establish male or female. That is how transcendent God is, and his truths will be fully established, if not in the persons who now deny. About 61:9, there are countless man-made ways of life, or systems of judgment. The good and truth in each is by definition Islamic, and those parts of orthodoxy and orthopraxy will be ultimately successful. And finally, about 61:14, helper or denier, we all belong to God, but the more on the right path, the easier it is on the prophets when they're alive, and the pious afterwards. Sometimes the underdog comes out on top in this life.